The old alien walked slowly into the great hall. His name was Kethmore, and he was very old. His people called him an elder because he had lived for 3,000 years. He had 4 arms and big eyes that could see many things at once. His skin was gray and wrinkled like old leather. The hall was huge and made of crystal that sparkled in the light. This was where the Galactic Council met to make decisions for the whole galaxy. Today, many different aliens sat in tall chairs around the IB room. They all looked very different from each other. Kethmore's breathing was hard. He needed a special mask to help him breathe. But he had come here to tell them something very important, something that could save them all. "Listen to me," Kethmore said in a weak voice. "The humans are coming. They are getting close to our space. We must be careful." A tall alien with long tentacles laughed. Her name was Velthara. She was the speaker for the council, which meant she was very important. "Old man, you worry too much. These humans are nothing. They just learned how to fly between the stars. Their ships are made of simple metal. They use old technology." Another alien stood up. He was huge and looked like he was made of stone. His name was Thais. He was a warrior from a race that had won many wars. "Let them come," he said with a voice like rocks grinding together. "My people have destroyed whole worlds. These humans will be easy to beat." But Kethmore shook his head. His eyes glowed with worry. "You do not understand. I have studied them for many years. I have watched what they do. They are not like other races. They do not give up. Ever." "What do you mean?" asked Velthara. She was getting annoyed. Kethmore moved to the center of the room. He pressed a button and pictures appeared in the air, above him. The pictures showed space battles and planets. "Look at this," he said. "This is what humans call the asteroid belt wars. Their enemies had bigger ships and more weapons. The humans should have lost in one day. But look what happened. The pictures showed human ships that were much smaller than their enemies. The human ships were damaged and broken. But they kept fighting. When their weapons stopped working, they used their ships as weapons. They crashed into the enemy ships. They lost many people," Kethmore continued. "But they never stopped fighting. In the end, they won. Their enemies had better technology, but the humans had something else." "What?" asked a small alien with blue skin. "They had will," Kethmore said. "They decided they would not lose no matter what happened, and when humans decide something, they make it happen." Thais laughed loudly. "One battle means nothing. My race has won thousands of battles." Kethmore showed more pictures. "This is the planet Kepler 442. The humans found it, but it was already occupied by a race called the Vex. The Vex were much more advanced. They had weapons that could destroy cities with one shot. They told the humans to leave." The pictures showed a beautiful green planet with tall cities. Then they showed those cities being attacked. "The humans said no," Kethmore continued. "The Vex attacked them. The human colony was almost destroyed. Most of their people died. Any other race would have left." "But they didn't?" asked Velthara, quietly. "No. They called for help. More humans came. The Vex destroyed those ships too. So more humans came. And more. Each time they learned something new. Each time they got a little better at fighting the Vex." The pictures showed waves of human ships arriving at the planet. Each wave was different. The humans had changed their ships and their weapons based on what they learned. "It took them 2 years, Kethmore said. 2 years of losing battles. But they never stopped coming. In the end, the Vex could not keep up. They ran out of weapons. They ran out of energy. The humans were still fighting." The room was quiet now. Some of the aliens looked worried. This was not worried. "So they are stubborn. That just means they will take longer to defeat." Kethmore's eyes grew brighter. "You still do not understand. Let me show you what happened next." New pictures appeared. They showed the planet Kepler 442 again, but now it was different. There were human cities, but there were also Vex cities. Humans and Vex were working together. The humans could have killed all the Vex when they won, Kethmore explained, but they didn't. They offered to share the planet. They said the Vex could live there too if they wanted peace. Many Vex said yes. Today Kepler 442 is home to both races. So, said Velthara, so the humans do not just defeat their enemies. They turn them into friends. The Vex now fight alongside humans. They share their technology. They work together to build new things. Kethmore walked closer to the council members. Do you see what this means? Every race that fights humans has two choices. They can keep fighting until they lose everything, or they can become partners with humans and become stronger. A small alien with many eyes spoke up. But Elder, humans are still primitive. Our technology is much better than theirs. Our ships are faster and stronger. Kethmore nodded sadly. Yes, today your ships are better. But humans learn fast. Every time they see new technology, they study it. They figure out how it works. Then they make their own version, but better. He showed more pictures. These showed human ships from different times. The oldest ships were simple and slow, but each new ship was more advanced. The newest human ships looked almost like alien ships, but with human improvements. They started with rockets that could barely leave their planet. Kethmore said. In 50 years, they had ships that could travel between stars. In another 50 years, their ships were as good as ours. How long do you think it will take them to make ships that are better than ours? The room was very quiet. Some aliens were starting to look scared, but Velthara stood up tall. Even if this is true, we are many, and they are few. The Council controls thousands of worlds. Humans have maybe 20 planets. Kethmore sighed. Numbers do not matter to humans. They have fought wars where they were outnumbered 1,000 to 1. They still won. They find ways to make their enemies fight each other. They make weapons out of things that are not weapons. They use their enemies' strength against them. He looked around the room at all the different aliens. But most importantly, they make other people want to fight for them. Everywhere humans go, some people decide they want to live like humans do. They want the freedom and hope that humans offer. This slammed his fist on his chair. Enough. I have heard enough of this nonsense. Humans are just another young race that needs to learn their place. If they come to our space, we will teach them. Many other aliens agreed with this. They made loud noises of agreement. But Kethmore just stood there sadly. I have warned you, he said quietly. I have shown you the truth. If you choose not to listen, then what happens next is not my fault. He turned and walked slowly out of the hall. Behind him, the council members began planning how they would deal with the humans when they came. None of them noticed the small device that had been recording everything. And none of them knew that 3 star systems away, Admiral Park Do-hyun was already listening to every word they had said. Admiral Park Do-hyun stood on the bridge of his ship and watched the stars. His ship was called Soul's Pride, and it was flying toward alien space. This was the most important mission in human history. Admiral, said his officer Lee Hana. She was sitting at a computer that showed them what was ahead. We will reach the border in 2 hours. Park Do-hyun nodded. He was a tall man with gray hair. He had fought in many battles, but this was different. Today, humans would meet the Galactic Council for the first time face to face. Are our guests ready? He asked. Yes, sir. Captain Kim Sunwoo and diplomat Choi Minji are in the meeting room. They are going over their notes one more time. Park Do-hyun smiled. Kim Sunwoo was one of the best ship captains in the human fleet. Choi Minji was their best diplomat. She could speak 12 human languages, and now she was learning alien languages too. The ship Soul's Pride was not like human warships. It was built for peace talks. It had comfortable rooms for guests and meeting areas, but it also had hidden weapons, just in case. 3 months ago, the humans had received a message from the Galactic Council. The message said that humans could come to Nexus Station to talk. Nexus Station was a huge space station where different alien races met to trade and make deals. The humans had been watching the aliens for 2 years. They had listening devices that could hear alien radio signals. They knew the aliens were arguing about what to do about humans. Some aliens wanted to attack Earth right away. Others wanted to wait and see what humans would do. Elder Kethmore had tried to warn the Council about humans, but most Council members thought humans were not dangerous. They thought humans were just another primitive race that would do what the council told them to do. The aliens were wrong. "Admiral," Lihana said, "we are getting a signal. It's from Nexus Station." "Put it on screen," Park Do-hyun ordered. A picture appeared on the big screen. It showed an alien with blue skin and many tentacles. The alien spoke in a strange language, but their computer translated the words. "Human ship, this is Nexus Station Control. You are cleared to dock at Port 7. Follow the guidelights. Do not bring weapons." "Thank you, Nexus Station," Park Do-hyun replied. "We come in peace." The alien on the screen looked surprised. Most races were afraid when they first came to Nexus Station, but Park Do-hyun sounded calm and confident. Nexus Station was the biggest thing humans had ever seen in space. It was as large as a small moon. Ships from hundreds of different worlds were docked there. The station had artificial gravity and air that humans could breathe. Kim Sun-woo piloted Seoul's Pride to the docking port. He was careful to follow all the rules. He did not want to give the aliens any reason to be angry. When the ship was docked, Park Do-hyun, Kim Sun-woo, and Choi Min-ji put on their best uniforms. They also carried small devices that would translate alien languages. The door of their ship opened, and they stepped onto Nexus Station. The first thing they saw was how big everything was. The ceiling was far above their heads. The hallways were wide enough for very large aliens to walk through. Everything was made of metal and crystal that sparkled with light. Many aliens stopped to stare at the humans. Most aliens were much taller than humans. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others looked like giant insects or birds. A few looked almost like humans, but with different colored skin or extra eyes. The humans walked through the station following signs that their computers translated. They passed shops selling things from across the galaxy. They saw restaurants with foods they had never imagined. They heard music that sounded like nothing on Earth. Finally, they reached the meeting room. It was a big round room with a table in the center. Around the table sat 5 aliens. These were the representatives of the Galactic Council. The largest alien was Thys. He looked like he was made of rocks. His eyes glowed red, and his voice sounded like thunder. Next to him sat Velthara, the council speaker. She had long purple tentacles instead of hair. Her skin was silver, and she had 3 eyes. There were also 2 other aliens that the humans had not seen before. One looked like a giant bird with metal feathers. The other was small and had green skin that seemed to glow in the dark. The 5th seat was empty. That was where Elder Kethmore usually sat, but he had not come to this meeting. "Welcome, humans," Velthara said. Her voice was like music, but cold. "I am Velthara, speaker for the Galactic Council. We have agreed to meet with you to discuss your place in the galaxy." Choi Min-ji stepped forward. She was not afraid, even though she was much smaller than all the aliens. "Thank you for meeting with us. I am Choi Min-ji, speaking for all humanity. We come seeking friendship and cooperation." Thys laughed. The sound was like rocks falling down a mountain. "Friendship? Little creature, you do not understand how things work here. The Council rules this galaxy. All races must follow our laws." "We understand that you are powerful," Choi Min-ji said politely. "That is why we hoped we could work together. Humans have much to offer." The bird-like alien spoke up. Its voice was high and sharp. "What could a primitive race like yours offer us? Your technology is thousands of years behind ours." Kim Sun-woo spoke for the first time. "We may not have advanced technology yet, but we learn quickly. We also have resources that might interest you. Our planet Earth is rich in metals and other materials." "Resources," Velthara said, looking interested. "Yes, that is something we can use. Here are our terms." She pressed a button, and words appeared in the air above the table. The humans' computers translated the words. "First," Velthara read, "Earth will become a tributary world of the Council. You will give us half of everything you produce." The humans looked at each other. This was not what they had expected. Second, no human population can grow beyond 50 million people on any world. You have too many people on Earth now. You must reduce your numbers. Choi Min-ji's face did not show any emotion, but inside, She was angry. Third, all human military ships must be given to the Council. You may keep small patrol boats for local defense only. Fourth, a Council garrison will be built on Earth. Council ships will watch your world to make sure you follow our rules. And fifth, Theiss added with a nasty smile, any human who disobeys Council law will be sent to work camps on Titan Prime. The cold there kills most workers within a year. The room was quiet. The aliens waited to see what the humans would do. Most young races begged for mercy when they heard terms like these. Some got angry and made threats they could not carry out, but Choi Minji just smiled. It was a small, polite smile, but something about it made Velthara feel uncomfortable. These are very detailed terms, Choi Minji said. We will need to discuss this with our government. How much time do we have to give you an answer? 1 month, Theiss said. If you do not accept by then, we will come to your space and take what we want. Kim Sun-woo nodded. 1 month should be enough time. We appreciate your patience. The aliens were surprised. Most races either accepted the terms immediately or started shouting about how unfair they were. The humans were doing neither. Is there anything else you need to know? Velthara asked. Just one thing, Choi Minji said. These terms apply to all human worlds, correct? All of them, the green-skinned alien said. Every planet where humans live must follow Council law. I see. And if we accept, we would be part of the Council system. We would have the same protection as other Council worlds. Yes, Velthara said, though she wondered why this mattered. The humans would have no choice but to accept. Thank you, Choi Minji said. That is very helpful to know. The meeting ended, and the humans walked back to their ship. They did not look worried or upset. They looked like people who had just learned something very interesting. As Seoul's Pride left Nexus Station, Park Do-hyun stood on the bridge with Kim Sun-woo and Choi Minji. Well, Kim Sun-woo said, that went about as we expected. Did you get all the recordings? Park Do-hyun asked Lee Hana. Yes, sir. Every word. And our scanners recorded detailed information about their technology and ship designs. Choi Minji was looking at her notes. They made several interesting assumptions. They think we only have the 20 worlds they know about. They don't know about our hidden colonies. Park Do-hyun smiled. It was the same smile that had worried Velthara. And they think we'll just accept their terms because we have no choice. The best part, Kim Sun-woo added, is that they told us their terms apply to all human worlds. That means if we become part of their system, they have to protect all human worlds, even the ones they don't know about yet. Lee Hana looked confused. Sir, you're not actually thinking of accepting their terms, are you? Park Do-hyun looked out at the stars ahead of them. Somewhere out there was Earth and the human colonies. Soon, the aliens would learn what humans really thought about their terms. Oh, we'll give them an answer, Park Do-hyun said. Just not the answer they expect. 6 months had passed since the meeting at Nexus Station. The Galactic Council had waited for the humans to accept their terms, but no answer came. Velthara was getting impatient. It has been too long, she told the Council. The humans are ignoring us. We must show them that we are serious. Theiss stood up from his stone chair. His red eyes glowed with anger. I told you we should have attacked them immediately. Now they have had time to prepare. Prepare for what? Asked the bird-like alien. They have primitive ships and simple weapons. What can they do in 6 months? Fleet Admiral Zurket entered the Council chamber. He was the greatest military commander in Galactic Council history. His people had conquered over 500 worlds. He was tall and thin, with skin like black metal and 4 arms that each held different weapons. The fleet is ready, Zurket announced. 500 dreadnought battleships. Each one can destroy a planet's surface. The humans will surrender when they see our power. Velthara smiled. How long will it take you to reach their space? 3 days, Zurket replied, and 1 day to destroy their pathetic fleet. By the end of this week, humans will be begging to accept our terms. But Elder Kethmore was not in the chamber to hear these words. He was in his private rooms watching news reports from the edge of Council space. Strange things were happening. Ships were disappearing. Communication stations were going silent. Something was moving in the darkness between the stars. 3 days later, Zurkot's massive fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system. What they found there was not what they expected. "Admiral," said his tactical officer, "the system has changed." On the main screen of his flagship, Zurkot could see what his officer meant. Where once there had been empty space around the planets, now there were structures everywhere. Huge metal platforms floated between the planets. The asteroid belt, which used to be just floating rocks, now looked like a giant factory. "What are those things?" Zurkot asked. "Scanning now, sir," his science officer replied. "They appear to be weapons platforms, mining stations that have been converted to military use. And sir, they're all powered up and aimed at us." Zurkot laughed. "Primitive weapons cannot hurt our ships. All vessels advance toward Earth. Destroy anything that gets in our way." The Council fleet moved forward. They had done this many times before. Young races always tried to defend themselves with whatever weapons they could build. It never worked. But as they moved deeper into the system, more surprises appeared. The planet Mars was covered with new structures. What used to be research stations were now military bases. Ships were launching from the surface and from hidden bases on the moons. "Admiral," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving a message from the humans." "Put it on screen," Zurkot ordered. The face of Admiral Park Do-hyun appeared on the main screen. He was sitting in the command chair of a ship that looked much more advanced than the simple vessel that had visited Nexus Station. "Fleet Admiral Zurkot," Park Do-hyun said calmly. "I am Admiral Park Do-hyun of the Human Defense Force. You are entering human space without permission. Please turn around and leave." Zurkot laughed so hard that his forearms shook. "Human, you are outnumbered 6-1. Your primitive ships cannot match our dreadnoughts. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick." Park Do-hyun smiled. It was the same smile that had worried the Council months ago. "Admiral, you're making the same mistake everyone makes about humans. You're looking at our numbers instead of our determination." "Numbers are all that matter in war," Zurkot replied. "Attack formation. All ships, open fire." The space battle began. Council plasma cannons fired bright beams of energy that could melt through solid rock. The first wave of human ships was hit and began to explode. Zurkot watched with satisfaction as human vessels broke apart and went dark. "See?" he told his officers. "Primitives always think they can fight us. They always learn too late that they cannot." But his tactical officer was looking worried. "Sir, something is strange. Our sensors show the human ships are destroyed, but what? But I'm still detecting power signatures from their locations. It's like they're still there. But our eyes can't see them." Zurkot was about to reply when alarms started sounding all over his ship. "What's happening?" he shouted. "Sir, the human ships we destroyed are powering back up. They're coming back online." On the screen, the destroyed human ships suddenly appeared again. Their hulls were damaged and many were leaking air, but their weapons were still working. They had not been destroyed at all. Lieutenant Commander Oh Sung-wan was sitting at the weapons station of the human flagship Incheon Rising. He was in charge of a new kind of warfare that humans had invented. They called it electronic deception. "All ships, activate Phase 2, he announced into his radio. All around the solar system, things that had looked like simple asteroids suddenly turned on. They were not asteroids at all. They were weapons platforms that Commander Shin Hye-jin had been hiding for months. The Council had been so focused on the human planets that they had not noticed the asteroid belt was now full of human weapons. The Council fleet found themselves surrounded. Enemy fire was coming from all directions. But that was not the worst surprise. Chief Engineer Yoon Ji-soo had spent the last 6 months studying every piece of Council technology that humans had ever captured. She had learned how their shields worked, how their weapons worked, and most importantly, how their computers worked. "Admiral Park," she reported from the engine room of the Incheon Rising. I'm uploading the virus now. Virus, Zurkit heard, this word through intercepted communications. What virus? His answer came when half his fleet suddenly stopped moving. Their computers had been infected with human-made software that made their systems stop working properly. Ships that should have been firing at humans were instead firing at each other. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. A council plasma beam hit the human ship Busan Hope. The ship's hull broke open and air began leaking out. Most of the crew was injured. Any other race would have abandoned ship. Instead, Medical Officer Bae Suman ran through the damaged hallways giving emergency treatment to wounded crew members. The ship's captain had a broken arm and could barely see through the smoke, but he stayed at his post giving orders to keep fighting. Sir, his weapons officer reported, main guns are offline. Life support is failing, and we've lost half our crew. What about our backup weapons? The captain asked. Still working, sir. Then we keep fighting. Zurkit watched in disbelief as human ships that should have been destroyed kept fighting. Ships with holes in their hulls. Ships with no shields. Ships that were leaking fuel and had dead crew members. They just kept fighting. One human ship, the Daegu Defender, lost all its weapons in the first few minutes of battle. Instead of retreating, the captain aimed his ship directly at a council dreadnought and accelerated. The human ship crashed into the much larger alien vessel and both ships exploded. They're using their ships as weapons, Zurkit's tactical officer reported in shock. Admiral, his communications officer called out. We're receiving surrender requests from our own ships. The virus has made them think we're the enemy. Zurkit looked around his bridge. Half his crew was trying to fix computer problems. The other half was trying to figure out which ships were friends and which were enemies. Outside, human weapons. Platforms were destroying his dreadnoughts one by one. But the humans were paying a price too. Many of their ships were destroyed. Many of their people were dead. The difference was that humans kept fighting even when they were dying. Admiral Park, Do-hyun, stood on his bridge and watched the battle. His ship had taken damage too. There was smoke in the air and some of his crew were injured. But his eyes were calm and determined. Admiral, reported Lee Hana, the council fleet is in full retreat. They're trying to leave the system. Let them go, Park Do-hyun ordered, but make sure they take a message back to the council. What message, sir? Park Do-hyun looked at the wreckage floating in space. Ships from both sides had been destroyed. Good people had died today. But the message was clear. Tell them that humans do not make threats. We make promises, and we promise that if they come back, we'll be ready. Zurkit's flagship was one of the few council ships that escaped. As they fled back toward council space, he tried to understand what had happened. His fleet had been bigger and stronger. His weapons had been more advanced. By all military logic, he should have won easily. But humans did not follow military logic. They followed human logic, and human logic said that some things were worth dying for. Admiral, his science officer said quietly, I've been analyzing the battle data. The humans lost almost half their fleet. Then why does it feel like we lost? Zurkit asked. The science officer was quiet for a moment. Then he said, because they were willing to lose everything and we were not. Back in council space, Elder Kethmore received reports of the battle. He was not surprised by what he read. He had tried to warn them, but they would not listen. Now, the galaxy would learn what he had known all along. Humans were not just another primitive race, they were something new, something that had never existed in the galaxy before. They were a race that would rather die than surrender. And that made them the most dangerous enemy the Council had ever faced. The war that was supposed to last 1 week had now been going on for 2 years. The Galactic Council was learning that fighting humans was unlike any war they had ever fought before. General Lim Tae-hyuk was standing on the command deck of a human military base on the planet New Busan. This was one of humanity's newest colonies, and the Council had thought it would be easy to capture. They were wrong. General, reported his aide Captain No Jamin, the Zephyrian attack force has landed. They have 20,000 soldiers and war machines. General Lim nodded. He was a short man with gray hair and calm eyes. He had fought in Earth's last big war and knew how to fight enemies who thought they were stronger than humans. How many soldiers do we have? He asked. 3,000, sir. But most of them are not real soldiers. They're colonists who learned to fight after the war started. General, Lim smiled. 3,000 people who are fighting for their homes against 20,000 invaders who are far from home. I like those odds. On the other side of the planet, the Zephyrian commander Velkan was setting up his base camp. He was confident. This battle would be over quickly. Humans were weak creatures with primitive weapons. His soldiers had energy shields and plasma weapons that could cut through any human armor. Commander, his lieutenant reported, our scouts have found the human city. It is poorly defended. We can attack tomorrow and capture it easily. Velkan looked at the map of New Busan City. It had maybe 50,000 people, mostly farmers and miners. Good. Make sure the humans surrender quickly. The Council wants this planet's resources, not destroyed cities. But that night, something strange happened. Zephyrian soldiers on guard duty began disappearing. One moment they were there, the next moment they were gone. The other guards found no sign of fighting. The soldiers had just vanished. Colonel An Jiwan was leading a team of human fighters through the forest around the Zephyrian camp. She moved quietly through the trees with 12 other humans. They were not wearing military uniforms. They looked like ordinary people, farmers, teachers, mechanics. But they all had one thing in common. They knew this planet was their home, and they would not let strangers take it from them. Remember, she whispered to her team, we are not trying to win a big battle. We are trying to make them afraid to be here. The humans had learned something that the aliens did not understand. In war, sometimes the side that is afraid loses, even if they have better weapons. And Jiwan's team captured Zephyrian guards without killing them. They took their weapons and equipment, then left the guards tied up where their friends would find them. The message was clear. Nowhere is safe for you here. By morning, Velkan had lost 50 soldiers. None of them were dead, but all of them were scared. They told stories of humans who appeared out of nowhere and then disappeared like ghosts. Commander, his lieutenant said nervously, maybe we should call for more soldiers. No, Velkan shouted. We are not afraid of primitive humans. Attack the city now. The Zephyrian army marched toward New Busan City. They expected to find humans hiding behind walls waiting to be defeated. Instead, they found empty streets and silent buildings. Where is everyone? Velkan asked. His question was answered when the attack began. But it did not come from the city. It came from everywhere else. Human fighters appeared on rooftops, in sewers, behind parked vehicles, and in buildings that had seemed empty. They fired their weapons and then disappeared before the Zephyrians could shoot back. General Lim had taught the colonists a new way of fighting. Do not stand and fight like soldiers, he had told them. Move like water, be everywhere and nowhere. Make them afraid to take a step without looking over their shoulders. The battle for New Busan City lasted 3 days. The Zephyrians controlled the main streets during the day, but at night the humans controlled everything. Zephyrian soldiers were afraid to sleep because they never knew when a human would appear. On the 3rd day, Velkan received a message from General Lim. Commander Velkan, the message said, you are welcome to keep the empty buildings you have captured. But this planet belongs to the people who live here. Your soldiers are tired and scared. How long can you keep this up? Velkan looked around his command post. His soldiers were jumpy and nervous. Every sound made them reach for their weapons. They had superior technology, but the humans had superior motivation. Sir, his lieutenant said quietly, we could destroy the city from orbit. Our ships could turn the whole area into glass. And destroy the resources the Council wants? Velkan replied angrily. They will execute me if I come back with nothing but a dead planet. That was the humans' real strategy. They made it impossible for their enemies to win without destroying everything valuable. The Council wanted planets and resources, not empty wastelands. While the fighting was happening on New Busan, something even more important was happening in space. Research Director Han Mirai was working in a laboratory that had been built inside an asteroid. Her job was to study alien technology and figure out how it worked. "Doctor," her assistant Li Gyongmin said excitedly, "I think I figured out how their faster-than-light communication works." Han Mirai looked at the alien device they had captured. It was small and made of materials that did not exist on Earth. But the principles of how it worked were becoming clear. "If we can build our own version," she said, "we can listen to all their communications. We'll know what they're planning before they do it." This was how humans fought. They did not just use their weapons and soldiers, they used their minds. Every captured alien device was studied. Every battle taught them something new. Every day, humans became a little bit stronger and a little bit smarter. Intelligence Officer Kang Hyunwoo was working in a different kind of laboratory. His job was to understand how the council made decisions. He had been studying their politics and culture for months. "The council species do not trust each other," he reported to his superiors. "They work together because they are afraid of being conquered by the others. But they compete for resources and territory." "Can we use this?" asked his commander. "I think so. If we can make them more afraid of each other than they are of us, they might start fighting each other instead of fighting us." Kang Hyunwoo began sending false messages to different council species. The messages were designed to make each species think the others were planning to betray them. Soon, council fleets were spending as much time watching each other as they were watching humans. But the most important change was happening on worlds that the council had already conquered. Admiral Jeon Seoyeon was in charge of special operations behind enemy lines. Her job was to help people who wanted to fight against council rule. She was currently on the planet Draxus Prime, which had been conquered by the council 50 years ago. The native Draxians were forced to work in mines and factories for their council masters. They had given up hope of ever being free. Then the humans arrived. "We cannot offer you easy victory," Admiral Jeon told a secret meeting of Draxian rebels. "But we can offer you hope. We can teach you how to fight back." The Draxians were not strong fighters. Their species was naturally peaceful. But they knew their planet better than their conquerors did. With human training, they learned how to sabotage council equipment and hide from council soldiers. Soon, the council garrison on Draxus Prime was dealing with constant problems. Mining equipment would break down for no reason. Transport ships would get lost when their navigation systems were damaged. Council soldiers would find their food supplies contaminated with harmless but disgusting substances. None of these things were deadly, but they made life very unpleasant for the occupying forces. The council had to send more soldiers to Draxus Prime just to keep the peace. Those soldiers could not be used to fight humans. This was happening on dozens of council worlds. Humans were not conquering these planets. They were teaching the local people to make life difficult for the council. It was like a disease that spread from world to world. Elder Kethmore watched all of this from his home on the council capital world. He was old and tired, but his eyes still saw clearly. The reports that came to the council told of victories and successful battles, but Kethmore could read between the lines. The council was winning battles, but they were losing the war. Every victory cost them more ships and soldiers. Every conquered world required more resources to keep under control. Meanwhile, the humans seemed to be getting stronger with every passing day. Kethmore activated his personal communicator and sent a message to someone he had not spoken to in many years. The message was simple. "You were right about the patterns. The humans are doing exactly what you predicted. How long do we have?" The response came back quickly. "Not long. Maybe 1 year. Maybe less. The council's empire is starting to crack. When it breaks, it will happen very fast." Kethmore turned off his communicator and looked out his window at the great council city. It had stood for thousands of years, the center of galactic civilization. But nothing lasted forever, especially when it was built on fear instead of cooperation. The humans had taught the galaxy something that the council had forgotten. People who fight for their freedom are stronger than people who fight because they are ordered to. And now, all across the galaxy, people were starting to remember what freedom felt like. 3 years after the war began, President Song Miran walked into the same crystal hall where Elder Kethmore had tried to warn the Galactic Council. But everything was different now. The great chairs where council members used to sit were mostly empty. Only 3 of the original council species were still there. Behind President Song stood representatives from 12 worlds that had left the council to join the Human Alliance. President Song was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a strong voice. She had been elected by the people of Earth to lead humanity during its most difficult time. Now she was here to offer the galaxy a new way forward. Members of the former Galactic Council, she began, speaking in a clear, calm voice. We are here to discuss the future of our galaxy. Velthara, the old council speaker, looked very different than she had 3 years ago. Her silver skin had turned gray, and her 3 eyes were tired. The war had been hard on everyone, but especially on the leaders who had started it. Humans, Velthara said, you have won. Our fleets are scattered. Our worlds are in rebellion. What do you want from us? President Song smiled, but it was not a cruel smile. It was the smile of someone who wanted to help. We want the same thing we asked for 3 years ago. We want to live in peace and work together to make life better for everyone. Thais, the great warrior, slammed his stone fist on the table. You expect us to believe that? You defeated us in battle. Now you will make us your slaves just as we tried to make you ours. No, President Song said quietly. That is not the human way. She gestured to the people standing behind her. There was Kira, a Draxian whose world had been freed by human-trained rebels. There was Voss, a young Corvani who had defected from Theis's own fleet. There was even a Zephyrian named Lesh who had decided that fighting humans was pointless. These people chose to join us, President Song continued. We did not conquer their worlds. We did not force them to follow our rules. We simply showed them that there was another way to live. Admiral Park Do-yoon stepped forward. He was older now, with more gray in his hair, but his eyes were still sharp. 3 years ago, you offered us terms for surrender. You wanted to control our population, take our resources, and put garrisons on our worlds. Do you remember? The council members nodded nervously. Today, we offer you different terms, Park Do-hyun continued. Join the Human Alliance as equal partners. Keep your governments and your cultures. Share your knowledge and resources willingly, and we will share ours. Work with us to explore the galaxy and build new things together. Velthara looked confused. You would trust us after we tried to destroy you? Director of Colonial Affairs Nam Ji-hyun spoke up. She was young for such an important job, but the war had forced humans to promote people based on ability rather than age. Trust must be earned, she said, but everyone deserves a chance to earn it. Elder Kethmore entered the hall slowly. He was very old now, and walking was difficult for him. But his mind was still sharp, and his eyes still saw the truth. Told you this would happen, he said to the remaining council members. I warned you that humans were different, but you would not listen. He turned to face President Song. You have done something that has never happened in this galaxy before. You have defeated an empire without becoming an empire yourselves. How? President, Song thought for a moment before answering. Because we remember what it feels like to be small and afraid. Earth has many nations, and for most of our history we fought each other. We learned that the strongest nation is not always the happiest nation. The happiest nations are the ones where people choose their own leaders and make their own decisions. Cultural. Exchange Coordinator Lee Ga-young stepped forward with a document in her hands. This is the charter for the new Galactic Alliance, she announced. It is based on principles that humans have learned over thousands of years of making mistakes and trying to do better. She began to read. Every world has the right to govern itself. Every person has the right to speak freely and think their own thoughts. Every species has the right to keep its own culture and traditions. No world may be forced to join the alliance, and any world may leave if it chooses to. The council members looked at each other. These terms were nothing like the harsh rules they had imposed on other worlds. What do you gain from this? Thais asked suspiciously. Why offer us such generous terms? Fleet Admiral Kim Dong-soo, who had been promoted after the victory at Seoul, answered this question. Because generous terms make strong allies. Harsh terms. Only make enemies who are waiting for a chance to rebel. He activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy. Green lights marked worlds that had joined the human alliance. Red lights showed worlds that were still under council control. Yellow lights marked worlds that were neutral or undecided. Look at the pattern, Kim Dong-soo said. Every week, more worlds choose to join us. They do this because they're neighbors. Tell them that life is better in the alliance. We do not need to conquer worlds. They come to us. This was true. The war was ending not because humans had destroyed the council, but because the council's own people were choosing to leave. Worlds that had been under council rule for centuries were declaring independence and asking to join the human alliance. Belthara studied the display. The truth was obvious. The council had lost not just the war, but the support of their own people. If we agree to join your alliance, she asked, what happens to the council? What happens to our authority? The council can continue to exist if you want, President Song replied, but as representatives of your people, not as their rulers. In the alliance, authority comes from the consent of the governed, not from military power. This was a completely new idea for most of the galaxy. For thousands of years, the strongest had ruled over the weakest. The concept that leaders should serve their people instead of commanding them was revolutionary. Elder Kethmore moved slowly to the center of the room. Everyone watched him, wondering what the oldest and wisest person in the galaxy would say. 3 years ago, I stood in this room and warned you about humans, he began. I told you they were relentless. I told you they would not surrender. I told you they were dangerous. He paused and looked around the room at the faces of humans and aliens. I was right about everything except the last part. Humans are not dangerous to those who treat them fairly. They are only dangerous to those who try to oppress them or others. He turned to face the council members. We have a choice. We can keep fighting a war we cannot win, or we can join something better than what we had before. One by one, the remaining council members agreed to the terms, not because they were forced to, but because they could see that the alternative was the collapse of galactic civilization. 6 months later, the First Galactic Democratic Assembly convened on New Geneva Station, which had been built in neutral space between human and former council territory. Elder Kethmore, despite his age, had been chosen as the first assembly president. Representative Jung Min-seo from Earth worked with former enemies to solve trade disputes and border disagreements. The solutions they found were not perfect, but they were fair, and they were reached through talking instead of fighting. The galaxy was changing. Worlds that had been enemies for centuries were learning to cooperate. New technologies were being developed through the sharing of knowledge between species. Young people from different worlds were learning each other's languages and cultures. It was not paradise. There were still arguments and problems. Some worlds chose not to join the alliance, and that was their right. A few council loyalists continued to fight, but without popular support. They were more like pirates than a real threat. But for the first time in galactic history, most of the galaxy was at peace. Not because they were afraid of punishment, but because they had chosen cooperation over conflict. President Song stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station and looked out at the stars. Ships from hundreds of worlds came and went, carrying not weapons of war but goods for trade and people seeking knowledge. Admiral Park Do-hyun joined her at the window. Do you think it will last? He asked. Nothing lasts forever, President Song replied. But we have given the galaxy something it never had before. We have given it hope that things can be better. She pointed to a ship that was leaving the station. That ship is carrying human teachers to the Vorthak homeworld. They are going to teach Vorthak children about democracy and individual rights. And next month, Vorthak scholars are coming to Earth to teach our children about their philosophy and art. Park Do-hyun smiled. The elder was right about one thing. When humans decide something must change, the universe has two choices: adapt or be left behind. The galaxy chose to adapt, President Song said. That was the smart choice. As they watched, more ships arrived at the station. Some carried diplomats working on new treaties. Others carried scientists collaborating on research projects. Still others carried ordinary people who just wanted to see what the rest of the galaxy looked like. This was humanity's real victory. Not the destruction of their enemies, but the transformation of enemies into friends. Not the conquest of the galaxy, but the creation of a galaxy where conquest was no longer necessary. Elder, Kethmore had been right about humans from the beginning. They could not be stopped.